Hi, I'm Dan Joseph with MRC TV. Now, in the late 90s, whenever I would travel to another city and tell people I was from Washington, D.C., the first thing most of them would say would be, D.C., huh? What's up with that Marion Barry guy? I got this reaction so many times that eventually I started telling people I was from Northern Virginia. For those of you who aren't familiar with the local politics of our nation's capital, Marion Barry was the mayor of D.C. from 1979 until 1991. But in 1990, Barry was arrested in a hotel room smoking crack cocaine with a woman who was not his wife. I know. Infidelity. What a scumbag. But the police were more concerned about the crack. Of course, a lot of folks knew something was going on since Barry had been slurring words and speeches and came to work with glassy eyes. Oh, and also the city was a total disaster area and was experiencing a drug war, which apparently Barry was contributing to. When Barry was released from prison in 1994, he decided to run for mayor again. And despite a nationwide Republican sweep that year, 56% of the voters in Washington, D.C. apparently said, hey, remember that crackhead who used to be the mayor? We should make him the leader again. And who can blame them? His opponent was a Republican. Oh, we can't have that now, can we? Barry served another term as mayor and is currently a city council member despite testing positive for drugs again, getting busted for driving under the influence, tax evasion, stalking charges, witness tampering, and multiple accusations of corruption throughout the years. Sounds like a movie, doesn't it? Well, you're in luck. According to the Washington Post, a movie about the life of Marion Barry is currently in development for HBO, and I think we all hope it's entitled Bitch Set Me Up, the Marion Barry story. Now, if you were making a movie about Marion Barry, who would you cast in the lead role? Terrence Howard? Lawrence Fishburne? Forrest Whitaker? Maybe Wesley Snipes, who could bring his own personal experience with tax evasion and prison to the mix. Whoever it is, it should almost certainly not be this guy. But, sure enough, Eddie Murphy, star of Vampire in Brooklyn, The Adventures of Pluto Nash, and Norbit, has been chosen to portray the infamous D.C. mayor. Actually, I like Norbit. What? Anywho, well, we're all looking forward to the scene in which Barry has uncontrollable flatulence while dining with visiting foreign dignitaries.
There you go again, popping off gas.
It's difficult for any DC native to picture Murphy as Mayor Barry. What's not so surprising is who HBO chose to direct the project. It's a Spike Lee joint. Now, Spike Lee is a notorious liberal. In fact, given Lee's track record, I wouldn't be surprised if he left the whole crack thing out of the film altogether, or came up with some whacked out conspiracy about how George H.W. Bush planted the crack on Barry in order to keep the citizens of D.C. in poverty and as citizens of a crime-ridden city that Barry was this close to getting them out of. I mean, after all, as Barry once said, if you take out the killings, Washington actually has a very, very low crime rate. The longest-serving mayor of our nation's capital, ladies and gentlemen. Now, the truth is that Marion Barry is symbolic of the hedonism, dysfunction, and corruption that is common in big city politics in metropolitan areas all over the country. Politicians like Barry think they can get away with anything, and sometimes they do. As soon as they get busted, they frame themselves as the victim of a system that's even more corrupt than they are. Of course, part of me is just upset that Billy D. Williams wasn't cast as Barry, because if Barry were that smooth, then we would all understand why the people of D.C. kept electing him.
You want to know why you should keep plenty of Colt 45 on hand? You never know when friends might show up.
Exactly.
I don't claim you can have a better time with Colt 45 than without it. But why take chances?
Works every time. Anyway, if Spike Lee wants to make this movie truly entertaining, he needs to include the following lines that were actually uttered by Marion Barry throughout his political career. What right does Congress have to go around making laws just because they deem it necessary? People blame me because these water mains break. But I ask you, if the water mains didn't break, would it be my responsibility to fix them then? Would it? I read a funny story about how the Republicans freed the slaves. The Republicans are the ones who created slavery by law in the 1600s. Abraham Lincoln freed the slaves, and he was not a Republican. And it was not a strip bar, it was an erotic club. And second, what can I say? I'm a night owl. Eddie Murphy, plus Spike Lee, plus DC's most famous crackhead. We laugh, but honestly, I wouldn't miss this movie for all the Rock and Anacostia. Let's just hope it turns out to be a fitting tribute to the man who put the Columbia back in the District of Columbia. For MRC TV, I'm Dan Joseph.
Billy D, Billy D, Billy D.